So I'm going to publish Exhibit 10, page 89. This particular knife that was found in Samantha Woll's apartment, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Do you know if this knife was submitted to Ms. Sekadet for trace analysis?
No.
And I'm going to go to pic 304 of the same exhibit. And you were present when a forensic tech indicated that this could be suspected blood, correct? You heard that testimony, correct?
I don't remember that.
You don't remember that?
I don't.
Okay. Did you get any close-up photographs of this particular spot on the floor that's near the sink?
No, sir.
Okay. You stated that you were able to look in the sink yourself?
Correct.
Okay. You didn't direct any forensic tech to take any pictures of inside of the sink, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you would agree that this sink looks rather clean, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And you don't know, of course, you don't know when it was clean, if it was clean recently, correct?
Correct.
Now, in regards to multiple people you said that were around the scene, I guess, as far as homeless people, correct? There were some homeless people?
Correct.
Did anybody get any statements from these homeless people?
There was attempts to, I believe Billy Schultz, there was a statement from. The other 10 to 14 did not wish to become back because we were having them bring them back to headquarters to be able to be interviewed on the recordings, and none of them were consented to come back to talk to us.
No, consented, okay. And I guess they would have the ability to deny coming back to speak to you, correct?
Correct. No proper cause to bring them in.
Now, in regards to this individual who was seen running away at 124,
Yes, sir.
we can agree that when this person was first seen, they were in the parking lot, correct, of this apartment complex, correct?
What part of the complex?
Of the apartment the same parking lot that we took a field trip to. How about that?
I would agree with that near the vehicle that pulled up, yes.
Okay. So you would classify this as a parking lot, correct?
Yes, as you move closer to the east, there's more of a park. Well, there's the street parking and then there's the parking lot.
Okay, but
so I would say it was right at the meet spot between the street and the parking spot.
Okay. Now, this person who ran, you indicated that you made some attempts to, I guess, do a geofence to see if whether or not this person had a phone or whether or not it can be located, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Would it be fair statement to say if this person, say, would have left their phone at home, then it would have stopped the ability to be able to detect whether or not they had a phone through the geofence, correct?
Absolutely.
Okay. And you're familiar with some of the warrants that were requested in this case, correct?
Some of them, yes.
Okay. You would agree that in one of Detective Sergeant Martinez warrants, he indicated that
Objection.
there is...
Calls for hearsay.
Well, he can testify what was in the warrant.
He can't testify what Sergeant Martinez wrote in the warrant.
Martinez already testified, right?
Right. I want to know if he was aware of this, what was contained in the warrant, the search warrant.
Ask Detective Martinez.
Yeah, we did ask Detective Martinez. I mean, he can verify whether or not he knew the same information.
Why is that relevant?
I mean, if I can ask my question, maybe we can see the relevancy of it. He stopped me before I even asked the question. I believe it's very relevant.
Ask if he's familiar with the warrant.
Okay. Are you familiar with the warrant from Sergeant Martinez in regards to Aaron Pergament?
So there was multiple search warrants.
Okay.
There was over 100 search warrants. With Mr. Pergament, there was probably more than a handful, if I remember correctly.
Okay. Are you familiar with? I guess the thought of people leaving their phone home in order to do a crime, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And that particular theory was utilized in search warrants in this particular case, correct?
I'm not sure. I have to take a look.
Okay. But you heard Sergeant Martinez testify, correct? Under oath, correct?
I don't recall the exact verbiage what he said, no.
Something to the effect of, in the warrant, there was that he requested, that he indicated that some people, when they do a crime, they leave their phone at home. You heard that testimony, correct?
I don't recall it, but if he said it, then he said it.
You don't recall that? Okay. And a question was asked of you of whether or not you knew for a fact, or whether or not Aaron Pergament had Samantha Woll's key. Remember that question?
Correct.
Okay. You would agree that there was some testimony and there's some evidence that would suggest that, in fact, Aaron Pergament had a key to Samantha Woll's residence. You would agree to that, right?
It would suggest in the text messages.
Okay. And other officers, your colleagues, made reference to that they felt that Aaron Pergament was lying in their request for a search warrant, correct?
One more time.
Your colleagues made reference to the fact that they felt that Aaron Pergament was lying when he told Officer Crenshaw that he did not have a key.
Yes, sir.
Okay. And that was utilized in the search warrant, correct?
I don't remember the search warrant verbiage.
Okay. But you do remember that general idea, maybe not the exact word for word, but you do remember the general idea that there was allegations and evidence that suggests that Aaron Pergament was lying when he told detectives that he did not have a key, correct?
Objection. When he's saying in evidence, I don't understand what that means. What is he trying to say?
Maybe
in
he might not
evidence?
understand. Maybe he does.
Oh, well, in evidence of this trial or evidence they looked at?
Evidence that you looked at. There was evidence that you looked at, that your colleagues looked at, that would suggest that Aaron Pergament lied to the officers when in fact he told them he did not have a key, correct?
I will say this, during the testimony, Officer Crenshaw, he said that he was lying. And what's the second part of that question?
There was evidence, such as text messages,
Yes, there is text messages.
that suggests that Aaron Pergament was lying, correct?
It would be considered on the context of the text messages back and forth.
That he was lying, correct?
That he said he didn't have a key, but it says that he, something along the lines of, I have a key, dot,
Okay.
dot, dot, dot.
And you agree that Sergeant Martinez, in his affidavit, said he felt that Aaron Pergament was lying, correct?
I don't recall that search warrant.
Okay. Did you look at different search warrants? If you were to see this search warrant, would it possibly refresh your memory?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you. Oh. May I approach?
I suppose.
I don't believe we ever executed the search warrant, so I don't remember seeing the search warrant.
So you never looked at that search warrant? Is that what you're saying?
Correct.
So you're unwilling to look at it now?
It's up to you, yeah. What do you want me to look at?
Well, you already questioned Martinez about it. He said he's never seen the search warrant before, so what's the point in asking him about it? You asked Martinez, who drafted the warrant, right?
Yes, I did.
And all this came out during Martinez's testimony, right?
Okay. Did you ever speak to Detective Martinez about his feelings about Aaron Pergament lying?
Objection. Relevance.
I think it's relevant.
How is it relevant? He
To-
wasn't even the acting officer in charge at the time.
Well, he's the officer in charge right now.
Okay, but the warrant was issued when?
Our October 25th, 2023.
And he testified that he himself played a role in the submissions of evidence and warrants prior to Mr. Jackson-Bolanos being arrested, which was November the 30th. So therefore, he has a frame of reference on what I'm talking about.
But Detective Martinez's feelings about whether somebody was telling the truth or not, it's not relevant.
Sustained. Let's move on.
Did you speak to him about any evidence that he may have had about Aaron Pergament lying about having a key?
No.
Okay. Did you ever request a warrant from the prosecutor's office in regards to Aaron Pergament lying to a peace officer involving a criminal investigation?
No, sir.
Now, you stated that you attempted to gather information from Mr. Herbstman's infotainment system in his Volkswagen, correct?
Correct. Sergeant Paul Warner.
Okay. You said you were unable to do that, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And some of the investigation tools that your task force or your colleagues used was to utilize license plate readers, correct?
Correct.
Okay. If somebody rode a bike to the scene, a license plate reader would not be helpful as far as detecting that. Would that be a fair statement?
It's a fair statement.
Okay. And when a prosecutor asked you, did you see anybody riding the bike, you specifically said at 4:20 you didn't see anybody riding the bike. Remember that?
That's correct.
Okay. Did you look prior to 4:20 of anybody riding a bike? Maybe at 1:30, 1 o'clock of somebody riding a bike in the area?
So the initial 124 caught our attention first before we started working on the 420 part.
Okay. That's not
So yes, I would say yes.
You would say yes?
The detectives were responsible for obtaining all of the canvas video.
Okay.
Was looking for any movement in that area at that time, and that's how they were able to locate the 124 individual.
Okay, any movement, but you were unable to see where this person who ran off went to. You don't know what their next movement was after running from the scene, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. Now, you also said you were able to rule out Mr. Herbstman based upon, I guess, the location of his phone, correct?
Those are one of the reasons, yes.
That's one of the reasons? Okay. Now, did you question Mr. Herbstman on what he was wearing on the day of October 20th to 21st?
I didn't conduct that interview.
Okay. Did anybody conduct interviews to see whether or not who he spoke with when he allegedly said he visited the synagogue earlier that day?
I don't recall.
Did anybody try to extract any video footage from the synagogue that would indicate what Herbstman would had on that particular day?
I don't recall seeing any synagogue video.
You don't recall, but you don't know for sure.
I don't know for sure, no.
Okay, so there very well could be video footage inside of the synagogue that you just didn't obtain, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Now, had you figured out what Herbstman was wearing, either from video footage and or witness testimony, you would have been able to look in his house to see those particular clothes and seize those clothes, correct?
That would have been a huge assistance.
Okay, and you would have been able to process those clothes to see whether or not they had any blood or DNA on there, correct?
Correct.
Okay, but that was not done, correct?
No, sir.
Okay. Now, in regards to Kevin Moore, it was a question on whether or not you obtained his clothes and analyzed it, and you stated no, correct?
Correct.
You do remember Officer Dowd indicating in his police report that it was his understanding that Kevin Moore stated that he did not touch the body, correct?
Objection. Again, calls for hearsay.
Sustained.
You heard testimony of Detective Dowd, correct?
Yes.
In relation to
Officer Dowd.
Officer
Correct.
Dowd, I'm sorry, Officer Dowd. You heard the testimony of Officer Dowd in relation to whether or not Kevin Moore touched the body, correct? You heard that, right?
I don't recall that because I'm mixing the two up between Mr. Moll testifying that he touched the body, so I don't want to be inaccurate. I don't remember which one he said.
Okay. Did you hear any type of contradiction to that fact of whether or not Mr. Moore touched the body?
No.
Objection. He can't comment on what another witness testified to.
He's here. He can testify on what somebody said under oath. It's not hearsay because it's said in court. It's not an out-of-court statement. It's an in-court statement.
Are you asking him to comment on whether it was truthful?
No, whether or not he heard it. Whether or not he heard it. I'm not saying whether or not it's true. We're not asking for the truth of the matter. We're asking simply, did he hear it? It's not an out-of-court statement. It's an in-court statement that has the reliability because it's under oath. Now, you heard Detective Dow, Officer Dow testify that in his report, Kevin Moore did not touch the body at all.
I'd have to review that report because I'm mixing the two up. Because I remember hearing Kevin Moore say he touched the body, and I don't know if it came from
Okay, you need to
Officer
review
Dow.
the report. So, reviewing that report, refresh your memory.
Yes.
Okay.
Oh, now I'm objecting again, because now he's not asking about the testimony, now he's asking back.
We've already heard from both of them. Why are you asking him about it? The jury's already heard from both witnesses.
Okay, I can ask him a question on whether he heard. He's the officer in charge. He was asked questions during direct about certain stuff that was testified to in questions, and I want to know whether or not he heard this particular statement. I don't see.
To what end? I mean, the jury's already heard it. It's up to the jury to determine what the testimony was.
Okay. So are you saying that I can't ask him the question?
Let's move on. Yes.
Yes, as what? I can ask him, or yes, and I cannot
I'm
ask.
telling you, you can't ask the question. Let's move on.
I just
It's
want
not
to look
relevant.
around.
The jury's heard from both those witnesses.
I believe it's very relevant because the question during direct was asked why you did not grab or analyze clothes from Kevin Moore because he's.
So ask him why.
Why didn't you analyze the clothes from Kevin Moore?
Kevin Moore was the 911 caller that called. There was information relayed to detectives that he had touched the body, and it wasn't going to be any surprise that Samantha Woll's blood would be on him. Now, with that being said, if there were smears or if there's spatter, we'd take an extra look into that as well.
Okay, if you would have heard some type of contradiction from an officer that contradicted what he said, would that have maybe raised your eyebrows or antennas to maybe want to see if I want to analyze it?
Absolutely.
Okay. But you're saying that you don't remember whether or not Officer Dow stated under oath that in his report Kevin Moore did not touch the body.
Correct.
Objection, again, calling for hearsay.
That's not hearsay, it's an in-court statement.
No, he's referring to his report.
Referring to a report.
He testified under oath. That was his understanding. Officer Dow testified under oath that as far as he knew, which
Okay, but
that's what anybody, you don't need to testify
but
to what you know.
You can't show him his statement.
If he read
His
his
statement
statement,
is hearsay.
but he's indicated that you can use anything to refresh your memory. He said, if I read the report, it will refresh my memory. That's what the lieutenant just said. So he should be able to look at the report to refresh his memory.
Fine, but
Any particular page? Okay, I'm ready.
Does that refresh your memory on what Officer Dow testified to?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now you would agree that Officer Dow testified that Mr. Moore nobody touched the body, correct?
According to his report.
Okay. Now, you saying if you had known then, it would have raised your antennas to maybe analyze the body, correct? Analyze the clothes of Mr. Moore, correct?
Correct. Mr. Moore was interviewed by detectives.
Okay. Did you ever read or have an occasion to speak to Officer Dow?
No, sir.
Okay. And had you known that information, I guess, sooner, you would have requested these clothes of Kevin Moore to be analyzed to see whether or not there are trace specks of blood on there, correct?
Depending on what he said in his interview with detectives.
Okay. You would agree that what Kevin Moore testified to and what Officer Dowd testified to about whether or not Kevin Moore touched the body were inconsistent with each other, correct?
Objection. That's a question, that's an issue for the jury to decide, not for the
Exactly. Sustained, let's move on.
Now, you testified about, I guess, Brett Foreman stating that, to your understanding, there were some comments. I'm not going to ask what the comments were, but there were some comments that were made that, I guess, put him on your radar, correct?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And in regards to Hirschman, you also said there were comments about him hurting Samantha, correct? That's what you stated. You said hurting.
I believe that was the Kalamazoo video, if I
Okay.
remember correctly. I don't know verbatim what it said, but that's what drew our attention.
Okay, but you would agree that his words were more than just hurting Samantha Woll. His words were about killing Samantha Woll. You'd agree to that, right?
He said he didn't know what he did.
Okay. You also heard from officer from the Kalamazoo. I can't think of her name right now.
Allison Baker.
Yes, on which she testified to her hearing Mr. Hirschman say, correct?
Yes.
Which was, I killed her, correct? Not I think I killed her, but I killed her. Remember that's the testimony, correct? Okay. Now, were there multiple cameras or ring cameras that were positioned towards Samantha Woll's door?
No, there wasn't any position towards her door.
Okay. Now, how much video surveillance did you watch of Mr. Hirschman's residence to determine if, in fact, any ring camera would be able to pick up Mr. Hirschman leaving or coming to his house?
I didn't personally look at it, but we focused on the hours between 12 and 7, just to kind of give it a brief time.
Okay.
Whether he went on foot, how long it would take him to get back, all those type of things.
Okay. And you're not even certain whether or not the cameras you looked at are even such in a position that they would be able to detect Mr. Hirschman coming or leaving his residence, correct? You didn't look at it yourself, right?
Based on what the detectives explained to me, it was down the street.
Okay, down the street, but you don't know how far down the street, correct?
No.
And you don't know whether or not those cameras would be in a position to detect if he left that street or if he went another alternate route, correct?
Correct.
Now, which taxi services did you request information from?
They changed names, I'm not real sure. The checkered cab or the one downtown?
Checkered cab or the one downtown? Or
It's the one downtown. I'm not sure what the name of it is.
Okay. Did you submit that to some type of report?
I did not know.
Okay. Did you personally check?
No, one of the detectives was responsible for that.
Okay. And throughout this trial, you've heard that other detectives stated that other detectives were required to do certain things, correct?
So every detective, every detective has different responsibilities.
Okay. But you've heard certain detectives say that I know that this other detective was supposed to do this particular task, correct?
Depending on what the responsibility was, yes.
In regards to, you've heard Sullivan testify that Sergeant Ford was supposed to extract video evidence from 1301 Orleans, aka Lafayette Towers. You heard Sullivan testify to that, correct?
Correct.
And you also heard Sergeant Ford come in and say, no, I was not tasked to do that. He's mistaken, correct?
Correct. It was Officer Saunders.
Okay. Officer Saunders.
Mhm.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Was that a person who was called to testify?
No.
Did you direct Officer Saunders to?
No.
Okay. Did you speak to Officer Saunders?
Yes.
Okay. About that very specific task?
The areas that he would
No.
go to canvas? Yes.
No. Did you ask Officer Saunders about that very specific extraction from 1301 Orleans?
Yes, sir.
You did? Okay. And when did you ask that?
It would have been during the time that around October, the week of, so it would have been that Thursday. Everybody started focusing on that area. So whatever that date is, I'm not real sure.
Now, do you know whether or not Samantha Woll's door sticks when you try to close it? Or does it close easily? Or does it take some type of extra pressure because it's not perfectly in line with the door jar?
I don't remember.
You don't remember that?
No.
Okay. Do you know whether or not that was tested?
I believe just how far the sensitivity was for the door to be cracked in order for it to give a signal of being open.
Okay. So you don't know whether or not if somebody went to try to close the door to get stuck so far because maybe some of the door needs to be sanded down for them.
No, I wouldn't know that.
Okay. Okay, Lieutenant, thank you. No further questions?
Now, you asked some questions earlier about a stain on Miss Woll's car, a seat within one of her vehicles.
Yes, sir.
All right. Now, is there ever any indication from any of the evidence that there was any blood on the exterior of her vehicle?
I was never notified of any blood that was on the exterior of the vehicle.
You ever seen any pictures or seen any bit of evidence that Miss Woll ever made her way from inside her apartment over to where her car was parked?
No.
Is there any evidence that she was stabbed at the wedding and maybe she was bleeding in the car as she was coming home from the wedding?
No.
Now, regarding Mr. Mull, the neighbor, is it normal in your investigations to collect the clothing of any single person who might be part of any investigation in a crime?
It would depend on the circumstance. If there was some smears or spatter or anything that was evident of that person's touching the body like that, yes, we would. But if it was nothing to the naked eye, normally we don't touch it.
Now, have you had a chance to review the body cam footage of what Mr. Mull was wearing that day?
A while ago.
Okay. If you can remember, did you see any noticeable blood covering all of his clothing?
It wasn't evident what I saw.
Now, you were asked about some camera footage from Mr. Herbstman's area that night.
Yes, sir.
Was that camera footage collected and provided and available as part of discovery?
Yes, sir.
All right, so presumably if there was footage of him leaving the scene, we would have seen it by now, correct?
Objection. That calls for it. That's speculation at best.
So strange. Defense hasn't had a chance to present evidence yet.
And now, you were also asked questions about notes being taken, correct?
Yes.
Now, is it normal in the course of your day-to-day job to document every single conversation verbatim, every single interaction with every lab person or civilian witness or police officer?
It'd be next to impossible for my daily activities. I have administrative duties as well and other investigations going on. Some of the conversations that are normally drafted or authored by another detective trooper or officer, I'm usually partnered up with somebody that can document that stuff.
I don't have any other questions.
Just briefly. You stated there are circumstances where you would, I guess, recover and analyze clothes from a particular witness, correct?
Yes, sometimes.
And you also, during cross, indicated one of those circumstances would be if there's a contradiction to what they said versus what an officer said, or whether or not they touched the body, correct?
If there was a contradiction,
Okay.
yes.
And in this case, there was a contradiction, correct?
To me, it would be more evident for me if
Sure.
I'm letting you know, if the officer said that they didn't touch the body if the officer said he touched the body and the witness said they didn't touch the body, that would raise suspicion as well.
Okay, but if the officer's saying that they didn't touch the body, and then the witness is now saying that they did, that's a contradiction, correct?
I would have to review the initial statement from the detective that was taken
Okay.
against Mr. Moll, but that would have been brought to my attention
Okay.
that
Lieutenant,
there was a contradiction.
Lieutenant, you would agree that the testimony you heard on the stand between Kevin Mull and Officer Dow was a contradiction on whether or not the body was touched, yes or no?
I will say the report, not his testimony,
Oh.
because I don't remember the testimony. Yeah.
And you also stated that you didn't see any noticeable blood from the body cam that you said you watched some time ago of
It's been a while.
of Kevin Mull. No noticeable blood, correct?
Nothing that was stood out.
Okay, and you would agree that on Mr. Jackson-Bolanos' North Face jacket, the pictures that were shown in court today, there was no, well not today, but the other day, there was no noticeable blood that could be seen, correct?
That's correct.
You also heard that it was testimony from forensic scientists that said it was unseeable to the naked eye, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Thank you. No further questions.
I don't have any
Questions from the jury? Thank you. I'm gonna step down.